My friends, here we have the most entitled actress I have seen coming from Hollywood in a very long time. So we're going to be getting into this. The comments that she has decided to make here, Celia Gooding, are absolute cringe and really just shines a light on where Hollywood is at right now and what happens when, you know, these newer generations are starting to take over the old guard in Hollywood. You know, and we're seeing this happening right now in real time, where we're seeing the old guard being destroyed in Hollywood, where we see Bill Murray being kicked out basically and shunned and everything else, and you know, pretty much any conservative voice in Hollywood. Gina Carano is a recent example where she was completely you know, blacklisted by Hollywood because of opinions that she shared on social media. So this is where we are at right now with Hollywood, and now we have some of the most entitled people I've ever seen working in Hollywood today. So let's go ahead and get into some of this very horrific stuff here. Star Trek Strange New Worlds actress Celia Gooding reveals she refuses to wear a wig. And you might think, just reading that headline, you might think, okay, what's the big deal, right? Like, that's what I thought when I first read this. I was like, okay, there's probably not a whole lot here. Let's just, you know, we won't make a big deal out of it. But then I started to read into it, and I was like, wow. This is a huge problem, not just in Hollywood, but in our culture today. Gooding's version of Uhura, at least at this point in the show, keeps her hair cut extremely short. Nicole's version of the character featured numerous different hairstyles, from a small afro in Star Trek The Motion Picture, a perm look in Star Trek 3, to the classic short cut with bangs in the original series. Zoe Saldana's version of Uhura in the most recent Star Trek films would also feature different hairstyles, from a long ponytail to having it tied up in a bun to it pulled back and hanging below her shoulders. Speaking with Trek Movie, Gooding would reply to a question asked about Laurie Ulster. Can you talk about the choice of Uhura to have your short hair? Did anyone try to suggest a wig or anything else? Gooding answered, no, I auditioned like this and they loved it, so it was never a conversation. However, she did indicate they did approach her about a wig, but she turned it down. It was approached, like they asked me would I want to wear a wig, and my answer was absolutely not. Gooding then explained why she's opposed to wigs. Wigs, I like to let my scalp breathe. So to have an opportunity, don't want any sort of discomfort, right? Like that's not, I mean, if you were involved in some of the biggest films out there today, like Lord of the Rings and stuff, I'm sorry, Gooding, you would not survive a day, because there was a lot of discomfort those people had to go through making that film. Like the Hobbits. Just take the Hobbits, for example. The amount of makeup and prosthetics they had to go through every single day to be ready for a shoot was insane. Absolutely insane. And I don't think that you would survive that, Gooding. So to have an opportunity to look like myself and show up as myself as this character, it's an incredible opportunity, she concluded. Gooding isn't the only Uhura actress to have pointed comments about her character's hairstyle. Nicole's talked about her hairstyle for Star Trek The Motion Picture as part of Preston Neil Jones' return to tomorrow, the filming of Star Trek The Motion Picture. Speaking to her afro look in the film, Nicole's told Jones, I was one of the first black women in the country more years ago than I care to remember who wore an afro outside in public. This was way before Star Trek. I wore one of the biggest afros in New York, but I wore it with Dior and Chanel suits. One of the other persons who was the first to wear an afro, but she cut it very short, was so anyway, I mean, that's not really relevant to this, but so what we have here is we have a huge problem of self-entitlement in our culture, where even just like the slightest bit of uncomfort, you can't deal with that. You can't have that, and you need to do everything you can to try to shut that down and not have any association with that whatsoever. And that to me is what is kind of happening here with Gooding. So basically her reasoning for why she didn't want to wear a wig was because she wanted her scalp to breathe. And basically you know, basically you can boil that down to it being just uncomfortable and stuff, and her not wanting to have to deal with that. And it's sad because there was no pushback really from anyone to try to get her to actually, you know, look the part, look like the character or anything else. And you know, the reason for that is probably because she is a black actress, and you can't really challenge their opinions or their positions or anything like that. You know, they probably don't want to get canceled, so that's probably why. So I have this opportunity to look like myself and show up as myself as this character. It's an incredible opportunity, she concluded. So she wanted to basically play herself, it sounds like. She wanted to play Celia Gooding, not Uhura. She didn't want to be the iconic Star Trek character. She wanted to be Celia in the show. And I'm sorry, but that's not how acting works. And there's this weird mentality that's continuing to pop up in Hollywood today, where you need to basically play who you are. You can't play outside of your own very limited viewpoint or box or whatever else. And that is a very bizarre viewpoint, because at the same time, they're totally willing to race swap pretty much any character that they want, and gender swap and everything else. They're totally fine with that. But when it comes to actors needing to play characters that they actually aren't, then that is suddenly a huge problem and stuff. And it's just absolutely just ridiculous how illogical, how insane, and how ridiculous everything is coming from Hollywood as far as that viewpoint goes. So Celia Gooding to me just comes off as someone who's very entitled, who wants to play Celia Gooding instead of Uhura on the show and everything else, and that is just really weird to me. But anyway, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'd appreciate that a lot, and I'll talk to you all in another video very soon.